Good afternoon, everyone. Soon call the meeting to order and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Then legal counsel will conduct the act of business before the cooperative, namely the seating of directors and approval of last year's annual minutes in accordance with the bylaws. You'll then see two short videos that were recently recorded. The first showcases highlights from the year 2020 and planned activities for 2021 at your cooperative. The second video is a wholesale power update from Minn Kota. And after that, Matt Laughlin from Brady Martz will provide an overview of the 2020 audited financials. Remember, you can view these annual reports online at any time. And there was one question posed by a member regarding renewables and a subsequent surcharge your co-op had put on in 2009. That surcharge was Minn Kota's power supply adding large sums of wind to the grid. And I'll discuss that question after Brady Martz goes over the financial report. Finally, we'll spend a few minutes talking about service awards for employees and directors. We did do a random drawing based on members who sent a valid ballot in. 15 names were drawn randomly for prizes. Those members will be contacted shortly. Roger, I'll turn the meeting over to you to get started.
Good afternoon to the members of Red River Valley Co-op Power. I welcome you and I call the online portion of the 84th annual meeting of Red River Valley Cooperative Power Association to order. In accordance with the Red River's bylaws, we will establish a quorum via the mail-in ballots that more than 315 of you returned to us. Before we begin, I want to recognize the cooperative's directors who are watching this session as well. From District 1, we have Bob Kincaid and myself. From District 2, we have Marv Thompson and Sarah Tummerdall. From District 3, we have Trevor Sorby and Neil Weiser. At this time, I would like everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Red River's attorney, Andrew.
Thank you, Roger, and good afternoon. The order of business at the annual meeting typically includes reading of the notice of annual meeting and proof of publication of said notice and reading of the unapproved minutes of the previous meeting. Due to the COVID-19 restrictions changing both the form and forum of our annual meeting, we'll dispense with the reading of notice of annual meeting and proof of publication of said notice and the reading of the unapproved minutes of the previous annual meeting. Please note, I have confirmed that the affidavit of mailing and proof of publication was prepared and is on file at the office of your cooperative. The minutes of the 83rd annual meeting held last year on August 5th, 2020, and the official notice of annual meeting were mailed with the annual report to all members February 18th, 2021. Given that this year's annual meeting was impacted by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the approval of the minutes for the 2020 annual meeting was conducted by mail-in ballot. Upon review of the results of the mail-in ballot by majority vote in accordance with the cooperative bylaws, you have approved the minutes for the 2020 annual meeting as printed and mailed. And this year was also stated in the notice of annual meeting and pursuant to the cooperative's bylaws, your cooperative has 2 directorship seats that were up for election in 2 of the 3 districts. Cooperative members in District 1 and District 3 were able to submit nominations to compete for a seat on the board of directors. The bylaws require written nomination petitions signed by any 15 or more members who reside within District 1 or District 3, and such petitions to be received in a timely manner. The bylaws do not allow for write-in candidates or for nominations from the floor. This year, the cooperative received 2 timely written nomination petitions from qualified candidates, 1 for each open seat. For District 1, open 3-year term seat, Bob Kincaid, the incumbent, has been properly nominated. From District 3's 3-year term seat, Neil Weiser, the incumbent, has been properly nominated. Again, similar to the approval of the 2020 annual meeting minutes, the election for this year's 2 open director seats was conducted solely by mail-in ballot. By majority vote, In accordance with your cooperative's bylaws, Bob Kincaid is elected for District 1's 3-year term, and Neil Weiser is elected for District 3's 3-year term. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'll turn the meeting back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Andrew. The next item on, is the Red River and Minn Kota informational videos. Please remember that you can always find information from reading your Sparks magazine. And you can also view the website or by calling. Matt?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in your local cooperative's annual meeting. Like all things in 2020 and the beginning of 2021, we're doing this from a different perspective. Obviously, trying to deliver the ability for you to understand how Minn Kota is doing during the pandemic, where we all can't meet together and are figuring out virtually how to continue to operate. I'm Mac McLennan. I'm the CEO at Minn Kota, and we are the power supplier to your local electric cooperative. So we produce the power and get it transmitted to your community so they can then take it and deliver it to your home. We roughly operate from about International Falls, Minnesota to Devil's Lake, North Dakota, for those of you who know your upper Midwest geography. So roughly the eastern half of North Dakota and the northwestern portion of Minnesota. We have about 3,300 miles of transmission line, so the big high voltage ones that you see running through and across the communities to be able to deliver electricity from either our coal plants in western North Dakota or our wind turbines in western North Dakota and eastern North Dakota both, or from the hydropower that we take off of the Missouri River as well. And so we have a multitude of resources along with some others that we use to produce the electricity that comes to your homes. I want to take just a few minutes today to talk about what's happening with respect to Minn Kota. Your cooperatives will often point out we are a significant amount of the bill that you pay for electricity each month. And so learning what's happening with respect to us, we think is important and valuable to you. Obviously, 2020 and 2021 have proved to be interesting years for all of us as we've gone through the COVID pandemic. And so I just despite the pandemic, we were able to keep our employees safe. So we had a great safety year in 2020, again, despite the pandemic and the fact that we had a large portion of our employees ultimately get COVID-19 through the last year or so. And so we had a great safety year. We had a great productive year from a operations perspective. But there are still challenges on the horizon. Weather in 2020 was pretty mild, which from a human perspective, we all enjoy. But from a utility perspective, provides challenges when you budget for a cold year and you don't get that delivered. It's today, as I sit here, it's 22 degrees below zero outside in the middle of February as we deliver this, but the month of January was one of the warmer Januaries we've seen. And so we're going to have some impacts from that. We had some impacts as well. The fortunate thing is that over the last few years, we've been able to put some revenues away that we're able to use so we can stabilize rates. So we've been able to have some stable rates for the last 3 or 4 years, and looks like we'll be able to again in 2021 because we had some revenues that we'll be able to apply even as we have these weather years. Figuring out what COVID means long term. So right now, as people have worked from home, it's really changed the pattern of how they use electricity. We used to historically see this big spike in the morning as everyone got their kids ready to go to school and as everyone got ready to go to work and as everyone at work started turning on their heaters to get ready for the winter or for the cold during the day. Obviously, as we see more work from home, that's flattened out and changed some. So we're trying to understand what does it mean. It's also lowered how much electricity has been needed across the region. So as businesses have shut down, as people have shifted, as office buildings have remained empty, it's shifted the amount of electricity people use. And so we're still adjusting to that. It's created some challenging market conditions. We sell a significant amount of electricity into the market, and we've seen depressed prices because of that. So we have what we believe to be challenges on the horizon as we continue to manage kind of weather and COVID, and hope that we'll come out of both of those back to some level of normalcy. Wind, because it's so cold that some of them are shut down. And when we see cold days when it snows or we see overcast in our neck of the woods as well, you see challenges from a solar perspective. So we believe, to need fundamentally plants that we can turn on when the wind isn't blowing or it's too cold for the wind to blow up here, or the sun isn't shining. And so with that, we continue to try to figure out how do we do things to improve the environmental profile of our coal plants, as an example. One big project for that is Project Tundra, the project to try to put carbon capture and storage on the backside of our largest units over on the western side of North Dakota. So the concept being, we'll remove the carbon dioxide from the flue gas stream, we'll concentrate it, place it back down in the earth where it will be permanently stored in rock caverns and forever. And so it's a very big project. We spent the last 3 to 4 years seeing if we can fundamentally figure out the technology, how to get that funded, make sure that it's safe within the ground. And I anticipate in 2021, so that at the end of this year, we'll make a decision about whether or not we do that. So that is a gigantic project for us as we look at the future of power supply in this region, and how do we fundamentally continue to use fossil-based assets like our coal units, which are extremely durable when we find days like today when it's 22 below. So we'll, in the course of the next year, make a decision about whether or not we think it makes sense to advance that project where we can both improve the environment as well as ensure reliability and affordability as we move ahead. So we have challenging times as we look ahead to the idea that everyone wants to electrify the economy. So what does that mean? We put more electric vehicles in place. We try to electrify how do we heat homes. We try to electrify transportation. So as we look to do that, we need to find ways then that we can produce electricity that provides that cost effectively and reliably. So I think about it just in simple terms. This announcement that U.S. Postal Service wants to go all electric with the vehicles that deliver our mail. That's a large number of plug-in stations when each of those gets home each night to be able to fundamentally plug them in so that they can charge for the next day for the delivery of mail. And so you think about that as a utility. We have opportunities on the horizon as well. And so the trick will be, how do we marry the technology we have today to become increasingly clean and increasingly more green in an electrified economy. So I look forward to continuing to work with you and your local electric cooperative as we meet those challenges in the future. Thank you. Hope your annual meeting goes well.
Welcome, members of Red River Valley Co-op Power. Thank you for supporting your cooperative. Despite COVID, efforts continued in 2020 and continue today to strengthen Red River Valley Co-op Power for the future. In fact, 2020 was a good year in terms of rates, reliability, and service. Before diving into an analysis of those three items, first know that some of our members were greatly affected by the pandemic. We hope you are navigating the best that you can. We can all lean on our shared experiences and the empathy and understanding that comes from those experiences. Please know your cooperative looks forward to communicating and working with its members during this time. In 2020, operating margins were sufficient. Historically, Red River Valley Co-op Power sales fluctuate due to weather and agricultural production. And looking at the chart, you can see those fluctuations over the last 5 years. Regardless, your blended residential rate remains less than state and national averages. Members have not experienced a rate increase since January 1st, 2017, and no increase is expected in 2021 either. In terms of actual services, your cooperative continues to grow at a steady pace, netting about 20 to 35 additional services per year. Already, your engineering team is fielding requests for the upcoming construction season. Year 1993 and through estate retirements. Over the years, Red River's board has returned $9.98 million back to members. Returning money back to you after it has been used to invest in operations is a hallmark of belonging to a cooperative. Member participation in off-peak typically saves your cooperative an estimated $800,000. Was no different, as off-peak participation allowed the co-op to shed 10 megawatts during a peak demand period. The unfortunate events that occurred in Texas and the Plain States in late February due to cold weather and the extreme strain on their electric grids was a complex situation exacerbated by many factors. Fortunately, the Midwest grid and Minn Kota's resources were robust and able to handle the events up here. In fact, the Midwest regional grid offered substantial support to the Southwest grid. It did this by importing energy from the east and exporting energy to the south. Load management in our region did play a significant part in helping maintain grid stability and not allowing demand to exceed resources. This helped save exposure to extremely volatile wholesale market prices. Your cooperative and its related cooperatives in the region have built up this system since the late 1970s. In fact, Minn Kota as a whole was able to shed 350 megawatts this winter. Essentially, off-peak members comprise a virtual power plant for allowing us to control load. In exchange for this partnership, off-peak members receive a rate for controllable electric heat that is about 45% less than the regular rate. With respect to rebates, Red River Valley Co-op Power offers healthy incentives for certain energy-efficient or money-saving heating systems. This is done for a couple of reasons. It demonstrates to federal and state jurisdictions that your co-op remains committed to energy efficiency. It also can be a win for both the member and co-op because we retain efficient kilowatt-hour sales that help shape our load profile in a more beneficial way. For instance, your co-op offers a nice per kilowatt rebate for taking into account distribution outages, that's outages that occur on our lines, and transmission outages, those on primarily Minn Kota's side, transmission and substation. During this construction season, your co-op plans to invest about $1.7 million into our grid. These investments come in the way of transformers, new services, upgrades, and replacement projects for sections of line that have reached the end of their useful life. In fact, 9 miles of overhead is slated to be converted to underground this year. The current ratio of your cooperative is 62% overhead power line, percent underground. In addition to line conversion projects, your cooperative will continue tree trimming, brushing, and pole replacement on its scheduled basis. These maintenance items are extremely important for the orderly upkeep of the system. Also this winter, a comprehensive township by township review of the whole system was conducted. This review will help shape our maintenance schedule going forward. The last piece of reliability to discuss is the completion of digital staking and mapping and the subsequent rollout of outage management. Your cooperative is about 95% complete on the digital staking and mapping. That's the skeleton of our new engineering model and outage services. You should expect to see the public outage viewer on our website sometime in April. Another investment your cooperative plans to make in 2021 is the renovation rebuild of our Halstead headquarters and the potential purchase of land to accommodate for sustained high service and future growth in Clay County. Your cooperative has been communicating this facility reinvestment study to you since last August. In Halstead, a substantial portion of our building footprint is more than 70 years old, with clear degradation and maintenance coming due. In light of that, and focusing on 3 necessary factors, safety, efficiency, and providing a pleasant environment, an estimated $3 million has been targeted for demolishing and rebuilding the 1949 portion of the facilities. Part of that also includes refreshing and maintaining the 1987 portion of the building. The plan is to finish the design stage soon, have a process of procurement, and selection of contractors and begin construction. Members are encouraged to call the office, and I would be happy to speak with them on the reasons why and the process. I also encourage members to view information on our website, in the annual report, and subsequent Sparks member magazines. Finally, Red River Valley Co-op Power appreciates the relationship it has with its members. There are challenges on the horizon in the energy industry, yet our cooperative model has proven extremely resilient. Next up to present the 2020 audited financials is Matt Laughlin from Brady Martz.
Thank you, Rich, and good afternoon. Like Rich said, my name is Matt Laughlin with Brady Martz and Associates out of Grand Forks. And your cooperative has hired our firm to conduct an independent audit of the 2020 financial statements. I'd like to just give you a brief overview today of the cooperative's financial condition, as well as its results of operations for the year. I'll start with the balance sheet, and if you can see the board to my right here, the cooperative's total assets for the year were about $42 million, of which 36 million consisted of utility plant, which is always the cooperative's largest investments. Other current assets, which are assets that can generally be liquidated with 1 year of the balance sheet date, were 3.7 million, and total cash was just over $1 million. Moving on to the statement of equities and liabilities, the cooperative's total current liabilities were $2.2 million. These are liabilities similar to current assets. They expected to be repaid within 1 year of the balance sheet date. Its long-term liabilities, its long-term debt was about 21 million. And when you take the assets less the liabilities, what's left over for the members was approximately 18 million at the end of the year. So if you think of the balance sheet as a snapshot of the cooperative's position at a point in time, in this case, December 31st, the statement of income is a measure of how the cooperative performed during the year. And as you can see, total cooperative net margins for the year were about 960,000, which were made up of the sale of electricity of 15.3 million, operating expenses about 14.8 million, of which the largest is the cooperative's purchase power from their wholesale power supplier, Minn Kota Power, and that was about $10 million and represented about 67% of the cooperative's total expenses. I'd like to close by saying that we completed our audit back in January, and our opinion on the financial statements was an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Rich.
And so we did have one question. And so a member asked about the surcharge and wondered why we rolled it into the regular rate this January. And before I get into this, I just want to be clear that your cooperative has not raised rates since January 1st, 2017, and we don't plan to raise rates this year either. So what the member was referring to in his letter really began many years ago with the passage of Minnesota's 25 by 25 Act under then Governor Tim Pawlenty. That act required utilities to be 25% renewable by the year 2025. So in order to meet that requirement, Minn Kota, our wholesale power supplier, entered into contracts for large sums of wind energy. And after the recession of 2008 and 2009, much of that wind was being put into the grid at a loss. So a half-cent surcharge at that time was enacted to make up for that shortfall experienced at the hands of all those excess kilowatt hours being sold into a soft wholesale power market. However, fast forward to 2020 and 2021, 10 years later, market and social dynamics have certainly changed over the last decade. Large-scale renewable energy is here to stay, and it frankly is part of the portfolio that Minn Kota has along with coal and water. So the reason for keeping that surcharge as a separate line item on the bill no longer exists. So in order to simplify the bill, we just rolled it into the regular rate because that necessary revenue component for wholesale power is not and was not going away. So the member had also stated in the letter that renewables are not cost effective or reliable, and this member wishes that we were more aggressive against renewable energy sources. Again, this law in question was passed more than a decade ago. So right now, the story and the conversation that we have with legislators is how we work hard to balance competitive rates with reliability and environmental goals. Furthermore, in light of the events in Texas, the message we are also trying to communicate is that this issue is very complex. The grid is a complex organism in many respects, and these decisions must be well thought out and balanced. So renewables certainly can and do play a role, but especially now, base load, whether it's coal, nuclear, or natural gas, still has an important and firm role to play as this nation's energy backbone for some time to come. But thank you for the question, and feel free to call or email the cooperative, and I'd be happy to discuss these issues with you. So before I hand the meeting back over to Roger and your board chair adjourns the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge 3 employees and 1 director who surpassed service milestones this year. So first, we have Kevin Schultz, our meter technician, who has been with the co-op for 30 years. We also have Suzanne Steen, our plant accountant, who has been with the cooperative for 20 years. Our journeyman lineman, Dan Stewart, has 5 years of service to your cooperative. And I also want to mention that Trevor Sorby, a director from District 3, has served on your cooperative's board now for 10 years. And governance and stewardship play a big role in local control at your cooperative. And that's really what cooperatives are about. It's democracy and local control. You own your cooperative. So while I'd love to do this in person with the membership in front of us in the places that we normally hold our annual meeting, I want to say a big thank you to all employees and directors for the work that you do. Your longevity is a testament to your desire to help members. I also want to thank Minn Kota for allowing us to broadcast this annual meeting from their headquarters in Grand Forks. And I'd also like to thank KRJB Radio and Ada for helping produce and broadcast this meeting online. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn the session back to you.
Thank you, Rich. Before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everyone for watching this informational session. And this informational session is now adjourned. Have a good afternoon.